Viewer discretion is advised.
Boom, perfect timing.
In May of 2023, I uploaded a video documenting the use of excessive force against Kedrick Crawford by Texas officers Teddy Sims, Samuel Serrett, and detention officer Shane Dunlap. Around a month later, in June of 2023, Kedrick Crawford's attorney U.A. Lewis from the Lewis Law Group reached out to me via email. We promptly had a phone conversation, and what she shared with me was truly startling. For those of you who may not be familiar with this case, don't worry. I will provide a brief summary before delving into the investigation. It was a hot summer night in Baytown, Texas. Kedrick Crawford was driving through town minding his own business when he pulled into a parking lot to put an address into his GPS. But before he knew it, he was surrounded by police officers. The officers were investigating what they called suspicious behavior from Mr. Crawford as he was backing in and out of a parking space. They asked him if he had been drinking, if he had any weapons in the car. Mr. Crawford answered truthfully, but it was not enough to satisfy the officers. The officers searched his car but found nothing. However, something about Mr. Crawford's demeanor made them suspicious. They wrote in their police report that Mr. Crawford became increasingly nervous during the search. Mr. Crawford would begin to question the officers, asking what the problem was. That's when things would take a turn for the worse. The officers would pin Mr. Crawford to the ground, handcuff him, and tase him as he begged the officers to not kill him.
Hi, I'm Yumika U.A. Lewis, and I am a civil rights attorney in Harris County, Texas. Thank you so much for being receptive to my email, but more importantly for reporting this. This is important, and I really appreciate all you folks on in YouTube land that have been continuing to share these issues when it comes to police violence and abuse. It is very important. It's a part of my work, and sometimes we fight in dark corners by ourselves, and nobody really knows what's going on. So we really appreciate you guys just shining the light on these areas. So as far as this case is concerned, with Mr. Crawford, what happened was on July 6th, 2019, he was traveling right before you hit Houston to set his GPS to get precise directions to where his mother was living. And so in doing that, he pulled into a parking lot, a safe area, to set his GPS, have himself a cigarette in a parking lot, minding his own business. And when that happened, an officer decided that he wanted to come and investigate why Mr. Crawford was just in a parking lot. And he was doing nothing wrong, committing no crimes. And in fact, he hadn't been pulled over. As I stated, he was in the parking lot on his own just to set his GPS. But Officer Sims came up to Mr. Crawford and asked him, you can kind of hear him in the video saying, what are you doing here? And, it put Mr. Crawford on guard, but he knew he had done nothing wrong. He didn't have a criminal background. Well, now he knows, but I tell all my clients, never consent to a search. And so, but he, figured like most of us, I'm not doing anything wrong. Go ahead, search. We see in the video where there's the dialogue and everything going forward. We see that Mr. Crawford starts getting a little, annoyed that they're keeping him so long and asks, when he's free to leave. And then the officer responds, yeah, whenever you want to. And Mr. Crawford says, okay, well, now's the time. I'm going to go ahead and leave. And then out of nowhere, Sims says, put your hands behind your back, and he's going to try to arrest him. But if you look, you can see the other officer, he doesn't say a word. The other officer, Serrett, doesn't say a word. He just makes a little signal. And then next thing you know, Mr. Crawford is being aggressively handled held and grabbed and threatened with abuse. I'll throw you to the ground and so forth. Mr. Crawford was perplexed. He didn't know what was going on. And then you see Sims take him and aggressively take him to the ground by his arm. And next thing you know, they're on top of him and they're passing him back and forth from officer to officer. You see a third person get involved, and that person ended up being a ride-along in Officer Serrett's car, I believe. And that person, his name is Shane Dunlap. He's a jailer. He was a jailer for the municipal jail in Baytown, and he's not a licensed officer. In fact, he's not even a licensed jailer. He has no license. But he was riding that day with them. He decided to jump out and join in on the free-for-all, for lack of better words, against Mr. Crawford, where they were choking him and hitting him, punching him, and tasing him. And he never hit back. He never was threatening. He just was begging for his life. He just asked them, please, what did I do? I'm sorry, what I do, please. And they continued to violently attack him.
Good, man. You ain't got no weapons or nothing? No. You want to come over and talk to me real quick? You got out kind of quick. Now, man, so I was making contact because you were here for a while, and then you backed out, and went back over here. You backed in. I just make sure you're not drunk or something.
No, I'm looking for stuff in my car.
Hey, I'm gonna make sure you ain't got no weapons. Can I pat you down real quick? Alright, man. I just want to check you out, make sure everything's okay, man.
I saw you back. You were about to turn out on the road, and then you backed up. What's up with that? My GPS on the phone.
Where you trying to go, man? Because you got out of the car pretty quick. There's no guns in the car today? No. Alright, dude. I was making sure it wasn't a freaking AK back there or anything. Sawed off, nothing like that, right? Okay, good. No switchblades, nothing like that? Okay. You ain't got kilos or bricks, birds back there, nothing like that?
Bird, well, if it was a bird, it'd be flying in the air, right?
Okay, okay.
Birds? Birds fly in the air, right?
Some, yeah. Okay, so, but nothing bad in the car today, man?
Nothing bad in the car.
Alright, any narcotics in the car today? A little bit of weed?
No weed.
No paraphernalia?
No paraphernalia.
Okay. Nothing like that, okay. Have you been arrested in Baytown before, man?
No, I haven't.
Alright, have you ever been arrested before or anything?
No, sir.
Alright. Did your driver license through Texas?
Yes, sir.
Alright. I was waiting on you, man. I was waiting on this return real quick, okay. So while I'm waiting on the return, is it cool if I make sure nothing bad in the car today?
I mean, you want to search the car, you can search it.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right.
I don't have a problem.
Okay, yes, no big deal, man. Hey, you mind if I check your pockets, make sure you ain't got nothing? I can?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just want to make sure, man.
I got a little mace can.
Okay, I'm going to grab that so I don't get... Not saying you will, I just know.
Sir, you told me searching my car. I mean, what's going on? I don't understand.
What do you mean? I search it. Yeah, you go ahead and search. That's what's going on right now.
I don't understand.
What do you not understand, sir? Hey, I'm gonna put your pepper spray back here.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing to it, man. No need to be tripping or nothing.
Okay, so what's the issue? I don't understand.
Honestly, you're nervous. I'm seeing some nervous behavior.
Why wouldn't I be? I mean, I'm not nervous, but I'm saying, what's going on?
Yeah. I'm just checking you out, man. You gave us consent to
I don't
search.
have any warrants, right?
Nope, but hey, you said, oh, this is consensual. You're staying here. You gave us consent to search. Well, yeah, we're gonna search it. I mean, and we haven't found nothing in there.
I got insurance, everything. What's
okay,
going on?
and what does that have to do with anything?
So when am I free to go?
Whenever, man.
Whenever?
Yeah. Alright, put your hand in my back.
What did I do?
Don't tense up, dude.
What did I do?
Freaking drop you.
What did I do? What's going on? I don't have anything. What's going on?
I'm taking the ground.
Sir, I didn't do anything.
Put it behind your back.
What's going on? What's going on? I don't know what's going on, sir.
You got his hand?
Yep. What's going on?
129 repeat.
What's going on?
129, we're fighting.
Put your hand behind your back, I'm going to tase you.
I'm just doing it.
Put your hand on your back.
Clear. All units.
Put your hand behind your back.
I'm not doing it. Ah! Ow!
Taser, taser, taser.
Oh, sir, I didn't do anything.
Put your hand behind your back. Watch it! Put your hand behind your back.
No, sir, please don't kill me, sir. You're killing me, sir. They're gonna kill me.
Put your hand behind your back. Watch out. Taser, taser. Taser, taser, taser. Put your hands on your back.
No, sir, please don't. You're killing me, man. Stop, man.
Watch out, watch out.
Kedrick Crawford was charged with assault on a public servant, which is a felony. These officers would shamelessly claim that Mr. Crawford had scratched one of the officers during the scuffle.
As we see in a lot of these videos, we see like a lot of verbal description of what's going on, like stop moving, put your hands behind your back. But when you see the video, it doesn't match with the actual words and the commands that they're giving. And that's exactly what happened here in this case as well. Put your hands behind your back while they're sitting on his back. Give us your arms while they're holding his arms. Things like that was kind of what was going on in these videos here. And as far as Mr. Crawford, he was severely injured. This all went about because he allowed this search. And what they ended up with, this Serrett officer ended up finding in Mr. Crawford's car was some prescription pills that he had. He had just been prescribed medication for a spider bite that he had gotten just a few days before. And that is where this all came from. And so they said, oh, well, there's a lot of times where people will take drugs and make it look like medication. And that's probably the case here. But then they quickly found out that these were valid prescribed drugs. They arrested him anyway for felony possession of a controlled substance. Actually, that's where they detained him, I should say. But they ultimately ended up arresting him for an assault on public servant. And so the assault, although he was the one assaulted, he was arrested for the assault on a public servant. And the description of the assault was a fingernail scratch against the officer. And that's what he went to jail for. That's what he was being held in the Harris County Jail on felony bonds for. So he wasn't able to get out because the bonds for felonies were usually about $10,000 back then. It was a delay in him getting out. And he had just been severely injured to the point where his eyes were swollen shut. And so here he is, this person who's never been in Harris County Jail before, with his eyes swollen shut, couldn't see a thing, made to maneuver throughout the jail, essentially blind. This is what his life was during those moments. And so he eventually was bonded out of jail. And after he was out, he was able to tell his side of the story finally.
Look at him, he like he dead.
It's been almost a month since Kedrick Crawford found himself in a hospital bed. His face is still healing. Stitches on his eyebrow have been removed, but his recovery continues.
I have no feeling in this part of my hand here. The right side of the left hand, there's no feeling in that at all. I have a rib that's bothered me quite a bit, short of breath quite a few times, so yes, quite a few different things going on.
Crawford's injuries stem from an arrest on July 6th in Baytown, just outside of Houston.
I was nowhere near expecting this type of an event at the end of the day.
Crawford says those pills found in his trunk were antibiotics. Police sent the pills to a lab for testing, but have not yet released those results. Crawford and his family also believe police haven't released all of the body cam video related to his arrest.
We want the footage. We will not let this go, not this time. Our ancestors are crying over this one.
Fast forward, we filed a lawsuit and we ended up in one of the most, I don't even know the best word to describe this judge, but he does have a history of having issues with women and minorities.
So we're talking about Judge Lynn Hughes. He has a lot to do with this. What exactly did Judge Lynn Hughes do during this case? How did he make your life very difficult? If you could go into that.
Yeah, so he doesn't like these type of cases. He's very pro-police. And so I ended up in his crosshairs over this case, and he did everything he could to make sure that we did have difficulties with the case and that it didn't move forward. In fact, he required, before I even moved forward with the lawsuit, that Mr. Crawford produce to the other side 20 years worth of medical records. If he didn't produce the 20 years worth of medical records, he wouldn't let the case go forward. Well, my God, can you get a hold of 20 years of your medical records anytime soon? Well, thankfully, Mr. Crawford didn't have a lot of records. He said, I never went to the doctor. The only time I actually went to the doctor in the last 20 years was for this spider bite I just had. So thankfully we were able to get those records, but that wasn't enough. The judge didn't believe that a man would not go to the doctor for 20 years. So he made us continue to search and put in affidavits and say, he hadn't been to the doctors and so forth. Then he asked the other side if they wanted his mother's health insurance records to make sure he hadn't been to the doctor in 20 years, as a parent. These are just some of the barriers that we had, just even getting to court. There were other they wanted his cell phone records. And so the judge required that we get cell phone records before we move forward with the case. It's just a lot of different random miscellaneous barriers that really didn't have anything to do with the actions that the officer engaged in, at least not enough to stall the case. And that's exactly what ended up happening. So I had to try to come up with different ideas and legal maneuvering to try to just get the case pushed forward. And at the same time, the other side was withholding information. For example, they didn't give us the name of the individual who jumped out of the car, that third person, Shane Dunlap, until almost a year into the case. We had filed the case, and it was nearly a year where they were concealing information. They made us believe it was one person when it was another person, and the judge could care less. He did not care whatsoever, did not admonish them at all. And, that was just something we had to deal with. So, we got to the point where we're like, file another suit, file it separately, and try to do it a different way.
In all the experience you've had, how unusual is this where a judge is asking for all of this miscellaneous paperwork?
It's quite unusual. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen with this judge. He does have a history of putting these barriers up for other litigants as well. And in this case, it's my opinion. In fact, I know for a fact that he actually investigated this case on his own, and he went online and he reviewed the video himself, and he knew how egregious it was. And I know because he described things in the video that was not described in the lawsuit and was not described in any of our hearings. And the only way he would have known it if he watched the video, and the video was not a part of the court record yet. Nobody had entered the video into the court record. So I knew for a fact that he had watched the video based on the conversation that he had with us in court. And there's no way he would know these things unless he watched the video. And so that's why I think he went on to do whatever he could to try to stall the case from moving forward.
In this case, the judge threatened to put you in jail, didn't he?
He did.
And if you could, please take me through your experience with Judge Lynn Hughes, where you defending your client, there was a cause and effect to all of this.
Right. Doing this type of work, dealing with these type of cases, everybody doesn't like you, and I've dealt with it from not just Lynn Hughes. There's other judges, in other parts of the state where I've just had to deal with a lot of people that are just not happy to see people like me come in and try to stand up for the rights of individuals who have been violated. But as far as Lynn Hughes is concerned, Judge Hughes, as I told you, the initial background, he was doing everything to stop the case from going forward. Well, when I said that, I try to think of different ways. I said, okay, I will file a different suit against the other officers and so on and so forth to try to get the case moving. And then I even filed a lawsuit against a totally separate lawsuit that had nothing to do with necessarily what these officers did, but what happened to him in the jail. Once Mr. Crawford was inside the jail, he didn't get any medical care. He didn't get any type of help. So I said, okay, well, I can sue the jail. That's what I can do, and I'll do it separately. And, maybe I'll get a different result with just dealing with the jail. And so anyhow, Judge Hughes, found out that I filed another case from the other lawyers, and he told the other judge, send that case here to my court. So he made them consolidate. And so he accused me of trying to avoid his jurisdiction, avoid his court. And so he wanted to sanction me for filing these civil rights lawsuits. And my sanction that he put in the order that I would be facing would be a $50,000 fine or 150 days in custody. That's what he threatened me with. And I knew it was illegal. I knew he could not do that. I knew that what I did was lawful. What I did was completely lawful, and I had every right to do it. The thing that was sad and unfortunate for me that I thought about was, not for me, but just in my mind, what I thought was unfortunate is I'm an older lawyer. I've been practicing for a while. What makes me sad is that if a young lawyer was faced with this, what would they do? Even a pro se, like if somebody doesn't even know what they're doing, what would they do if faced with a person like this, a judge like that? And that is why it was very important for me to fight back and show up and fight. And I did. If I were facing that judge when I first started practicing, when I was maybe a 1 or 2 year lawyer, that would have ran me away from this area of practice forever, probably. I probably would never take another case like this again. I'm glad it was me, and I was able to get the best outcome out of that. He ended up trying to sanction me for attorney's fees, for the to pay the other side attorney's fees in classes, which I also objected to. It was absolutely unlawful for him to do that. So I also objected to that, and he drew back on it. And then basically his order said something to the effect that, I'm satisfied with the classes that she showed me that she took, and let's just put this all behind us. And because I was relentless, I was not just going to give up on this case or just go away. It was stressful. And I will say that my colleagues, it was like during the time of COVID, before the vaccine. I think the vaccine may have just come out, but my colleagues, they packed that courtroom despite that, and they backed me up, and they were there. And I had a lot of support from the legal community that don't even do civil rights, but they were just, we see what he's doing, and they really just put themselves out there because they know that they could have easily been within his strike zone for standing up and just being there and in support of me. So I commend all my colleagues that showed up, and that gave me a lot of, strength to put my chest out, my head up, and say, let's go. Thankfully, it worked out for the best.
In January of 2020, the charges against Mr. Crawford were dropped. Interim Chief of Police Mike Holden placed patrol officers Teddy Sims and Samuel Serrett on administrative leave without pay, but would place detention officer Shane Dunlap on administrative leave with pay.
Fast forward, after, we're dealing with all these stalls and so forth, we got to the point where the district attorney of Harris County actually charged these officers with the assault, which was awesome because I had gone everywhere. I mean, just did my best. I asked the Texas Rangers to investigate. I asked for the Department of Justice to investigate, and I asked for the district attorney to investigate. I asked everybody possible to investigate this, please. And this is a crime that's happened. What I see in this video is an absolute crime. And it took a long time, and I didn't think it would happen, but it did. And I was just I almost got brought to tears because I was so thankful that somebody finally listened, and these officers just wouldn't get away with the civil penalties that were potentially here in dealing with this judge. And so fast forward, once the criminal case and the criminal charges came about, that put the case on the civil side that we were dealing with on pause. If I can explain what qualified immunity means, I think it's important because qualified immunity is this doctrine where a person who's a public official, and it could be a judge, a police officer, even a teacher, if they are engaged in unconstitutional conduct, but the conduct that they've engaged in has not happened before, then they can get away with it. And it has to be pretty precise in the description. And also, if they acted objectively reasonable, meaning if another officer would have acted the same way, then it's fine. Then they get qualified immunity.
It looks to me that's a massive loophole in the system in terms of qualified immunity for officers. In this particular case, Kedrick Crawford's case, do you think that the officers have qualified immunity?
I don't, because I think the law is clearly established in his case that, he didn't commit any crime. And there's plenty of cases where officers have tased individuals when they have not been a threat, have not committed a crime. I think there is a good body for his particular case.
In July of 2021, a Harris County grand jury would indict the two Baytown police officers and the detention officer for their involvement in the July 2019 assault of Kedrick Crawford. Teddy Sims, Samuel Serrett, and Shane Dunlap were all indicted for first-degree felony aggravated assault. Officer Sims had his bond set at $75,000, while Officer Serrett and Detention Officer Dunlap both had their bonds set at $60,000 each. In addition to those bond amounts, bond conditions include having no contact with Mr. Crawford, no contact with each other, wearing a GPS ankle monitor, no drugs or alcohol, and no possession of firearms. The criminal trial of Samuel Serrett, Teddy Sims, and Shane Dunlap is scheduled for February 13th, 2024. How is Kedrick Crawford doing today?
He's still dealing with his injuries. He had a lot of injuries as a result. He had a fractured orbital floor, so his eyes, on both eyes, were fractured. His knee was fractured, and just his overall body. He had some spinal issues as a result. So he's still dealing with that, the injuries. He's a father of 5 children and a husband. And so his family has suffered as well. You know, his family, they don't have the same person, even mentally, that they had before this happened. His mother, he was on the phone with his mother when this happened. I don't know if you could tell on the video, but he was actually on the phone with his mother. He was actually headed to, like I said, to go to his mother's place, who had his children. She was spending time with his children, her grandchildren, and he was going there to catch up with them and pick them up. Well, she's on the phone while this is going on, and she's just listening to these officers attack her son. And so she grabbed the children and she told them, let's get on our knees, let's pray right now. And they all held hands, got on their knees and prayed while they're listening to him being attacked, screaming for his life. And seemed like prayers worked, because he left that day with his life, and it didn't seem like he would.
When you first got this case, your first reaction when you saw the video?
So first of all, when he described it, I was like, no, there's no way. Like, there's no way. And it was captured on video, and he was like, yeah, I'll send it to you. And he sent me the video, and I just told him, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry that you had to deal with this. I'm sorry you had to go through this. This is, you know, you didn't deserve this. And I'll do whatever I can to help fight for you. This is wrong. You absolutely do not deserve this. And I will do my best to hold these guys accountable. And I did. I feel good that I was able at least to get the criminal charges. I mean, to me, that's the most important, to make sure, because now those officers are not officers anymore. Sims now works like in an oil field in Montana or something somewhere. And this judge in the criminal case was kind of amazing, because one of the bond conditions that she put in place, she didn't treat them like officers. She treated them like everyday people, like one of us. If we were to be accused of something, or especially being a video of this nature, she made them give up their guns. You cannot carry a weapon. You cannot talk to one another. She barred them from being able to communicate with one another, and basically said that they couldn't talk to witnesses. So that was just instrumental in stopping further abuse by these officers, and took away any sense of emboldenment that they would have. So it was very, very a wonderful thing to know that the judge took this serious and treated them like an American, like all the rest of us American citizens.